Lana claimed her husband, Stephen Clayton, was abusive and that she poisoned him only once, hoping to punish, not kill him.
I did impulsively put the Visine in Stephen's drink, and I did it with the intent to make him sick and uncomfortable.
Step into the shadows of a seemingly idyllic South Carolina mansion and prepare to uncover a web of deceit, betrayal, and chilling secrets. The Clayton family appeared to have it all: wealth, love, and a life of privilege. Lana Clayton, the wealthy wife and nurse, and her husband Steve, a successful businessman, seemed to have a picture-perfect life. However, their idyllic existence came crashing down with Steve's sudden and mysterious death, setting off a chain of events that would uncover the truth. Lana's disturbing confession of poisoning her husband with eyedrops sent shockwaves through the community, leaving friends and family stunned and questioning the facade they had witnessed for years. Welcome back to True Crime Expresso, where we cover solved and unsolved crimes and serve up the darkest mysteries and chilling tales from every corner of the globe. In today's video, we will delve into the depths of this twisted tale that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. We'll explore the story of a mansion tainted by betrayal and a family torn apart by greed and manipulation, unfolding a chilling story that sent tremors through the Clayton family and their community on July 21st, 2018. Lana Clayton was a nurse, which always put a smile on Steve's sister, Rosie's face. She met Steve online back in 2010, and after 3 years of dating, they tied the knot in a lovely ceremony just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. This was Lana's second shot at marriage, while Steve's family had lost track of how many times he had walked down the aisle before. Steve was the kind of man who would fall in love frequently, but it didn't always turn out so rosy for him. He was a sociable and well-liked guy, famous for throwing extravagant parties with fireworks and live music. He worked as an accountant, but in the 80s, he ventured into creating a successful physical therapy business and specifically catered to sports injuries. He then decided to retire at the ripe age of 40. Looking at their life from the outside, everything seemed picture perfect. But the truth was harsher than anyone thought. James Blackledge, a Vietnam veteran who had seen his fair share of life's hardships, had an unexpected encounter as he rode past Steve and Lana Clayton's house on that fateful morning of July 21st, 2018. He spotted a distressed woman sprinting across the yard who was frantically asking for help. It was Lana Clayton, who had just emerged from her home in a state of panic. She urgently signaled Blackledge to call 911, and he wasted no time in doing so, staying on the line with the dispatcher as Lana hurriedly dashed towards a neighbor's house across the street. Meanwhile, Terry Floyd, a close friend and neighbor of Lana and Steve, was startled by a forceful knocking on his screen door. It was Lana, visibly distraught. Terry inquired about what was happening, but all Lana could repeat was, "It's Steve!" Without a moment's hesitation, they hopped onto Terry's golf cart and raced towards the Claytons' front door. Lana provided the location of Steve's condition, lying at the base of the stairs in the foyer. He tried to find a pulse, but sadly, there was none. According to Lana, Steve had been suffering from vertigo for the past 3 days, experiencing severe nausea, dizziness, and being confined to bed. Lana recounted that she had checked on Steve at around 11 a.m. that morning and found him peacefully asleep, so she ventured outside to mow the lawn. She ensured he had water, his medications, and everything he needed right by his bedside. Little did she know, tragedy was about to strike. When the York County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the scene, Lana was visibly distressed, attributing her husband's passing to a fall down the stairs. News of Steve's sudden demise quickly spread, reaching the ears of his nephew, Nick French, who happened to be a police officer in a neighboring town. Nick hurried to the grand estate, where Lana embraced him tightly, tears streaming down her face. Overwhelmed by the sight that awaited him inside, Nick entered the room where Steve lay motionless. It was a profound shock for him, as he deeply cared for Steve, and witnessing him in such a vulnerable state was immensely difficult. Shortly after 1 p.m., Coroner Sabrina Gast received the distressing call regarding Steve's passing. According to Gast, her deputy didn't observe anything suspicious and initially believed that the cause of death was likely a heart attack. As an experienced cop and investigator, Nick French's trained instincts kicked in, causing him to take note of certain concerning aspects regarding Lana's behavior following the discovery of Steve. Two specific observations stood out to him. Firstly, there were multiple phones within the house, and Lana being a nurse, it seemed peculiar that she hadn't utilized any of these phones to make the emergency call. This raised questions about her choice of communication in such a critical condition. Additionally, Nick noticed that Lana was not engaged in performing CPR when the authorities arrived at the scene. Given her nursing background, it struck him as unusual that she hadn't immediately initiated life-saving measures upon finding Steve in distress. These observations started to raise doubts and caused Nick to mentally compile these discrepancies as potential red flags. With his trained eye for detail and experience in investigations, Nick couldn't help but register these observations, urging him to delve deeper into the circumstances surrounding Steve's tragic demise. Steve's phone, a device that was typically inseparable from him, seemed to have vanished without a trace. The fact that they couldn't locate Steve's phone raised further questions about its sudden disappearance. Another incident that struck Nick was Lana's reaction when questioned by the deputy coroner about funeral arrangements. Lana appeared overwhelmed with her head in her hands, expressing her lack of clarity regarding the matter. However, when the deputy coroner suggested taking Steve's body to the morgue for testing, Lana swiftly changed her stance. She looked up and suggested a funeral home conveniently located nearby, proposing immediate cremation. The rapid shift in Lana's decision from being unsure to swiftly opting for cremation raised suspicions in Nick's mind. Furthermore, Lana resisted Nick's attempt to inform Chris, Steve's nephew, about his uncle's passing. Intrigued by these unsettling occurrences, Nick felt compelled to investigate further. Returning to his late Uncle Steve's home stirred up a whirlwind of emotions for Chris Fagan. One memory that stood out in his mind was the unforgettable July 4th party Lana and Steve had hosted just weeks before his uncle's untimely demise. Steve had always been enthusiastic about July 4th, going all out to throw massive celebrations. The dance floor would be set up, fireworks lighting up the sky. It was a grand affair. To outsiders, the couple seemed happy and deeply in love. However, Dr. Nan Say, a veterinarian responsible for caring for the Clayton Mansion's dogs, held a different perspective. According to her, their seemingly harmonious relationship was nothing more than a facade. Say couldn't help but question the motives behind their marriage, as Lana rarely spoke when Steve was present. A peculiar dynamic indeed. Another bizarre incident occurred in the bedroom 2 years prior to Steve's passing. Lana claimed that she accidentally shot her husband in the head with a crossbow while he was asleep. Both Lana and Steve insisted it was an accident, and miraculously, Steve suffered only minor injuries. Surprisingly, no charges were filed by the police, and the couple moved forward from the incident. However, just 2 months prior to Steve's death, he confided in Chris about the deteriorating state of their 5-year marriage. Steve expressed his unhappiness, confessing that things weren't turning out as joyful as he had anticipated. Despite the outward appearance of happiness, underlying issues and strange incidents hinted at a troubled marriage, leaving Chris with a mix of emotions as he delved deeper into the circumstances surrounding his uncle's death. When Chris arrived at the house, he offered to comfort Lana, who expressed her need for assistance in organizing Steve's affairs. Chris suggested they start by locating Steve's will, as it would provide insights into his final wishes regarding burial or cremation. Surprisingly, Lana claimed that there was no will, contradicting Chris's knowledge of its existence, as Steve had previously asked him to be the executor. As Chris persisted, Lana abruptly stood up, vehemently denying the existence of a will, and stormed into the house. This left Chris stunned and perplexed. Later, when Nick learned of Lana's behavior, bad-mouthing Steve in the kitchen and sharing lurid tales of his alleged drug abuse while laughing, he was taken aback. Lana even expressed her resistance to an autopsy, citing concerns about potential toxicology results. Nick found her words and demeanor deeply unsettling. Curiosity drove Nick to investigate the upstairs bedroom, where Lana claimed Steve had been bedridden for 3 days. What he discovered was distressing. The bed was soaked in urine. When Nick confronted Lana about this, she casually attributed it to Steve's vertigo, as if it were a normal occurrence. Soon after, Lana abruptly demanded that everyone leave, leaving Nick and Chris with a strong sense that something was amiss and that Lana had played a role in Steve's death. Meanwhile, Rosie, Steve's sister, tried to reconcile the notion that his vertigo may have somehow led to a heart attack. On the following Sunday, Chris and his wife had intended to assist Lana in locating Steve's will, further deepening the intrigue surrounding the circumstances of his passing. After Lana's dismissive and possessive response, refusing any assistance and asserting her control over the situation, Nick and his wife immediately sensed that something was amiss. They quickly left for Chris's house, where they shared their concerns and decided to take action. Their first priority was to contact the coroner's office, realizing that time was of the essence. Lana had already scheduled a cremation for the following day. Nick and Chris were determined to uncover the truth, demanding that the coroner order an autopsy and toxicology tests. Fortunately, the coroner agreed to their request, providing some relief to the family. However, they were aware that Lana remained unaware of their actions. The autopsy results brought confirmation to the family's suspicions. There were no significant findings related to the chest, heart, or lungs, ruling out a heart attack as the cause of death. However, the toxicology report revealed a shocking truth: evidence of poisoning, specifically the presence of a chemical commonly found in eyedrops. In an instant, Steve's death took on a highly suspicious nature. When coroner Sabrina Gast examined the toxicology report, she discovered an unfamiliar chemical present in Steve Clayton's blood, a substance she later identified as the common ingredient found in Visine eyedrops. The concentration of this chemical, known as tetrahydrozoline, in Steve's blood sample was significantly high, measuring at 68 nanograms per milliliter. She also explained that if an entire bottle of THC were emptied into someone's drink, it could lead to respiratory system damage. THC is undetectable by its color, odor, and taste, making it a covert means of poisoning. Coroner Gast, uncertain of whether Steve had intentionally ingested the tetrahydrozoline with the intent to harm himself, arranged an interview with Lana. Unbeknownst to her, investigators from the sheriff's office and the FBI were discreetly listening in from the adjacent room. During the interview, Lana was questioned about Steve's use of Visine and its frequency. She mentioned that someone had once told Steve that putting a couple of drops of Visine in his coffee could help him with bowel movements, and he had been doing this for years. Upon hearing Lana's comment about Visine being in Steve's system, the police realized that she was aware of the presence of tetrahydrozoline and that she had intentionally administered it. As the investigators entered the room surprising Lana, she began shifting blame onto her late husband, suggesting that he may have attempted suicide due to his mood disorder and unpredictable behavior. She claimed that she often walked on eggshells around him, uncertain of his mood and fearing his anger. However, when pressed further by the officers, Lana became defensive and abruptly ended the interview, retreating back to the mansion. The investigators, determined to gather more evidence, followed Lana to her residence, where she continued speaking. Unbeknownst to her, the conversation was recorded. In a shocking turn of events, Lana confessed to the investigators, revealing her true intentions. She admitted to setting up a table next to the bed with Steve's belongings, including his tissues, medications, and Visine. Overwhelmed by anger, she confessed to squirting the entire bottle of Visine into Steve's belongings, stating that she was just so angry at him. Lana claimed that she had reached a breaking point due to Steve's incessant demands and constant requests, which had accumulated over time, causing her immense anger. However, she insisted that she never intended to kill him. Lana tried to justify her actions by emphasizing her frustration and the desire for him to experience the consequences of his behavior. When Nick, Steve's nephew, learned of Lana's confession, he immediately contacted Chris to share the distressing news. As Lana continued her conversation with the investigators at the mansion, her demeanor underwent a dramatic transformation. No longer the grieving widow, she revealed herself as a resentful and embittered wife. As Lana's narrative unfolded, she introduced allegations of physical abuse, claiming that Steve had assaulted her on multiple occasions. However, there was no evidence to support these claims, and those who loved Steve found it hard to believe the unflattering picture painted of him. Moreover, Lana's credibility was further undermined when she changed her story about the crossbow incident from 2016. Initially presenting it as an accident, Lana now admitted that she intentionally shot the crossbow at Steve, alleging self-defense. However, Nick French and Chris Fagan, who were unaware of this incident until after Steve's death, remained skeptical of Lana's claims and did not believe she was genuinely acting in self-defense. The shifting narratives and lack of corroborating evidence left them questioning Lana's motives and credibility. After Lana's intense interrogation, investigators left her at the mansion to prepare an arrest warrant. It was during this time that Lana attempted suicide by taking pills and turning on the gas. She left notes indicating her remorse for poisoning her husband and her inability to live with herself. A concerned neighbor discovered her and called for help, leading to her brief hospitalization and subsequent arrest. The coroner had developed a theory regarding the eyedrop crime, suggesting that Lana had gradually escalated the dosage over time. This theory could explain why Steve was bedridden for 3 days prior to his death. It was speculated that Steve may have mustered a surge of adrenaline, realizing the severity of his illness and the need for help. In a desperate attempt to seek assistance, he may have made it as far as the bottom of the stairs before succumbing to the effects of the poisoning. It is likely that he couldn't call for help because Lana had disposed of his phone. On August 31st, 2018, more than a month after Steve's death, Lana Clayton was formally charged with murder for her involvement in his poisoning. The family's speculation about Lana's intentions and motives behind Steve's death is understandable given the circumstances. They believe that Lana had been planning Steve's death since 2016 when she convinced him to move to the mansion in South Carolina. Her marriage to a wealthy man raised suspicions that she may have had ulterior motives, especially considering that if Steve were to die without a will, Lana would inherit the entire estate under South Carolina's intestate laws. Lana's insistence that there was no will and her agitation when questioned about it further fueled these suspicions. Chris, Steve's nephew, is convinced that Lana destroyed the will in a fire witnessed by neighbors the day after Steve's death. In Lana Clayton's case, she ultimately decided to plead guilty to charges of tampering with food and drugs and voluntary manslaughter. On January 16, 2020, Judge Birch sentenced Lana Clayton to 25 years in prison. It's worth noting that Lana has not been awarded any money from Steve's estate, indicating that the court did not find her entitled to inherit any of his assets. The role of a spouse is commonly perceived as that of a best friend and confidant, someone who stands by your side to support and uplift you during life's trials and tribulations. However, it is important to remember that marriage is rooted in trust, love, and mutual respect rather than deception, greed, or malicious intent. The shocking revelations of domestic violence, the crossbow incident, and Lana's attempt to destroy evidence further deepened the disturbing narrative. What could lead Lana down this dark path? Was it solely fueled by greed, or were there deeper emotional scars at play? Let us know your thoughts down below.